शक्ति कीलकम् श्री गुरु प्रसाद सिद्ध्यर्थे जपे विनियोगः अथ ध्यानम् हंसाभ्यां परिवृत्तपत्रकमले दिव्यैर्जगत्कारणे विश्वकीर्णमनेकदेहनिलये श्रुतं वदशाम्भवं सुचरणं दीपाङ्कुरग्राहिणं प्रत्यक्षाक्षरविग्रहं गुरुपदं ध्याये विभुं शाश्वतम् मम चतुर्धा पुरुषार्थसिद्ध्यर्थे जपे विनियोगः श्रुत उवाच कैलासशिखरे रम्ये भक्तिसन्धाननायकम् प्रणम्य पार्वती भक्त्या शङ्करं गाय पृच्छति श्रीदेवी उवाच ॐ नमो देवदेवेश भगवत्पर जगद्गुरो सदाशिव महादेव गुरुदीक्षां प्रदेहि मे येन मार्गेण भूस्वामी देहि ब्रह्ममयो भवेत् त्वं कृपां कुरु मे स्वामी नमामि चरणौ तव ईश्वर उवाच मम रूपासि देवे त्वं प्रत्यक्षं वदाम्यहम् लोकोपकारकः प्रश्नः न केनापि कृतः पुरा दुर्लभं तेषु लोकेषु तच्छृणु वेदशास्त्रपुराणानि इतिहासादिकानि च विविधाश्च स्मृतिरुच्चातनानिकान् शैवशाक्तगमादीनि अन्यानि विविधानि च अपभ्रंशकराणि जीवनान्तं तेजसा यज्ञोवतं तपोदानं तपस्तेषं तथैव च गुरुतत्त्वमविज्ञाय गुरस्ते चरते जनाः गुरुबुद्ध्यात्मनो नान्यत् सत्यं सत्यं न संशयाः अल्लाभार्तं प्रयत्नस्तु कर्तव्यो हि मनीषिभिः गूढविद्या जगन्माया देहेशाज्ञानसम्भवः बुद्धयो यत्प्रकाशेन गुरुशब्देन कथ्यते सर्वपापविशुद्धात्मा श्रीगुरुपादसेवनात् देहि ब्रह्म भवेयस्मात् पात्रपात्रं वदामि ते सर्वतीर्थास्य सम्प्राप्नोति फलं नरः दर्शनं पापमकस्य विपरम्यातेजसां गुरुपादोरकं सम्यक् संसारानवतारकम् अज्ञानमूलहरणं जन्मकर्मनिवारणं ज्ञानवैराग्यसिद्ध्यर्थं गुरुपादोरकं Brahma Gurudeva Samshaya Gukara Pratamo Varno Mayadi Guna Bhasakaha Gukaro Dityo Brahma Maya Branti Vinashana Evam Guru Padam Sweshtam Devanamapi Durlabham Ahahu Ganashchaiva Gandharvaishchata Pujyate Yuvam Tesham Cha Sarvesham Nasti Tattvam Guruparam Asanam Shayanam Basvam Dusharam Vanarikam Sadakena Pradatavyam Guru Santoshakarakam Guru Paradharam Karyan Sajivitvam Nivedaye Armaram Manasavacha Nityamarvadaye Gurum Devadandam Namaskritya Vilajyo Guru Sannidham Shariram Indriyam Pranam Satgurubhyo Nivedaye Atmadhararikam Sarvam Satgurubhyo Nivedaye Tvamektekta Bhasma Vishta Durgandhi Mahamurtakam Leshmarattam Prachamamsam Manchayena Varanade Samsara Vrikshamarudha Patanto Narakarnave Yena Chaiva Bhuta Sarve Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Gurudeva Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Etave Jagatameva Samsaranavasetave Prabhave Sarvavidyanam Shambhave Gurave Namaha Ajnanatimivandhasya Jnanajnanashalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvam Pita Tvam Cha Me Mata Tvam Bandhu Tvam Cha Devata Samsara Pratibodhartam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yat Satyena Jagat Satyam Yat Prakashena Bhaktitar Yananandena Nandanti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yasya Sitya Satyamidam Yadabhati Bhagarupatam Priyam Putvariya Pritya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yena Chaitayate Hidam Chitam Chaitaya Chaitayam Jagat Swapna Shishupyadi Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yasya Jnanadinam Vishwam Nadrisham Bhitna Vedatam Sadeka Rupa Rupaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yasya Matvaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yasya Karana Rupasya Kaya Rupena Bhatiya Kaya Karana Rupaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Danda Rupamidam Sarvam Nakena Pyasti Bhinnata Kaya Karana Kacheva Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yadamni Kamaladvandvam Vandvata Panivarukam Tarakam Sarvarapabhya Shri Gurum Shayamayam Vivekute Guru Svata Guru Krude Shivonahi Tasmat Sarva Prayatnena Shri Gurum Sharanam Vrajay Vande Guru Padadvandvam Vamanachita Gocharam Jitarakta Prabhaminam Shiva Satyatmakam Param Guptaram cha gunatitam, Guptaram rupavarjitam, Gunatita swarupam cha, Yoradyatsa gurusmatam. Atrinetra sarvasakshi, Achatur bhavarachita, Achatur vadano brahma, Shri Guru Katita priye. Ayam mayanjale bhadro, Daya sagara vrindaye, Gada mukha hato janto, Chitra samsara mukti bhag. Shri Guru paramam rupam, Viveka chakshushomitam, Mandabhagyana pashyanti, Anda suryodayam yatha. Srinakacharana dvandam, Yasya rishi virajate, Tasyaina sheramashpuryat, Bhaktya pratidinam priye. Tasyaina she satatapanjale sahaye, Rakshitete mukhanto madhupir budesha, Jagadutrayam ganapatim, Hitatrayam bhairavaham, Siddhokam Bhattukatrayam parayutam, Dhrutikramam mandalam, Hiranyashtatushushta shashti navakam, Hiravarit panchakam, Srimam Malini mantra raja saitam, Vande Guru mandalam. Abhyaste sakale sudhirna manile, Vyari pare dushkare, Pranayama shatiranaika karane, Dukathape durjaye. Yasminam yudhite vinashati bale, Vayu swayam takshana, Ratam tatsajam svabhava manishan, Sevadvame Kanguru. Adeshika Sheva Sharira Chittanam, Avedana Tasya Shivasya Chintanam, Adeshika Sheva Chanama Kirtanam, Avedana Tasya Shivasya Kirtanam. Yaparare Nukanika, Kapi Samsara Varite, Setu Bandhayate Natan, Deshikantam Upasmaye. Amlabha Maharadhyanam Mursuje, Kasme Shire Shikendraya, Namashabhishta Siddhaye. Parajam Sava Samsara, Davanala Vinashakam, Brahmarandre Sitam Mocha, Madhyastam Chandra Mandale. Akatani Vivekabhye, Sahasrara Mandale, Hamsa Pashva Chikonecha, Smaretan Madhya Gamburam. Sakala Bhona Swasti, Kalpita Sesha Pushti, Nijala Niramadrusti, Samparam Vyartha Drusti. Avara Parimarstis, Tappararthika Drusti, Bhavaguna Parameshti, Moksha Margika Drusti. Sakala Bhuvanaranga, Stapana Stammayasti, Sakaruna Rasavristi, Padmamala Samasti. Sakala Samaya Shristi, Satchidananda Dristi, Vivasatu Maye Nityam, Shri Guru Divya Drishti. Surasamam Tatum, Valapalarikshakariyam, Mantra Rajami Mammanye, Arni Sankhatam Mutyuta. Hare Jati Tane Jati, Tadure Tatsamipake, Parantarasa Sarvasya, Taru Sarvasya Bhayata. Ajo Amajaro Amcha, Anadi Didanasvaya. Shakti Samaruಢas Tattva Vibhushitaः Bhakti Mukti Karataya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Aneka Janma Samprapta Sarva Karma Vidharine Swamajnana Prabhavena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Nagarodadikam Tattvam Nagarodadikam Tapah Tattvam Jnana Param Nasti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mandata Shri Jagannatho Madhuru Shri Jagadguru Namah Sarva Bhutatma
Shvetamba
तस्मै सृष्टि स्थिति ध्वंसा निग्रहानुग्रहात्मकम् नित्यं पञ्चविधं शाश्वतं भासतीतं नमाम्यहम् त्वता शिरः शुक्लाब्जे द्विनेत्रं द्विभुजं गुरु वरभययुतं शान्तं स्मरेतं नामपूर्वकम् न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं शिवशासनता 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 इदमेव शिवं त्विदमेव शिवं त्विदमेव शिवं त्विदमेव शिवं मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनता एवं गुरुं गुरुं ज्ञात्वा ज्ञानमुत्पद्यते स्वयं तत्सद्गुरुप्रसादेन मुक्तवानिति भावये गुरुदर्शितमार्गेण मनश्शिरेन्द्रकारे आनित्यं खण्डये सर्वं गोचरम् हेयं सर्वस्वरूपं च उच्यते ज्ञानमेव समं कुर्यात् नान्यः पन्था एवं श्रुत्वा महादेवी गुरुनिन्दं करोति यः सायति नरकं घोरं यावच्चन्द्रादिवाकरो यावकल्पान्तको देहः तावदेव गुरुं स्मरेत् गुरुरूपो न कर्तव्यः स्वच्छन्दो यदि वा भवेत् ओंकारेण न वक्तव्यं त्वन्यशिक्षेकतं सदा गुरुरत्नेन वक्तव्यम् असत्यं शाकरार्चना गुरुं त्वं प्रत्याहुं प्रत्य गुरुं निर्जित्य वागता अरण्ये निर्जले देशे स भवेत् ब्रह्मराक्षसा मुनिभिः पन्नगैर्वापि सुरैर्वा शापितो यदि कालमृत्यो भयाद्वापि गुरुरक्षति पार्वती आशतानि सुरैरश्च आशता मुनयस्तथा गुरुशापेन ते शीघ्रं स्वयं यान्ति न संशयः मद्गराजमिदं देवी गुरुरित्यक्षरद्वयम् स्मृतिवेदान्तवाक्येन गुरुः साक्षात् परं वरम् केवलं गुरुसेवका सन्न्यासिना प्रोक्ता इतरे वेषधारिणा नित्यं ब्रह्म निराकारं निर्गुणं भूरेकरं सर्वं ब्रह्मादिराभासं दीपदीपान्तरं यथा गुरुकृपाप्रसादेन अमरमं निरीक्षयेत् अन्येन गुरुमार्गेण स्वात्मज्ञानं प्रवर्तते ब्रह्मस्तम्भपर्यन्तं परमात्मा स्वरूपकं स्थावरं जलमचैव नमामि जगन्मयम् एवं सच्चिदानन्दं निरतीतं सद्गुरुं निर्गुणं स्वामसंस्थितं परमतरं नित्यमानन्दकारकं हृदयाकाशमण्डलस्थं सुधास्मृतिकसानिभां प्रतीकाप्रतिमारूपं दुष्टकेकर्पणेयकां परात्मनि चिदाकारम् आनन्दं स्वदिग्विजयम् अदृष्टं darshanamatrena punarjanmana vidiyate samudvecha yathattoyam shirikshiram bhute bhutam Nimetum neyakakashat tatma paramatmani Tathaiva jnana jivatma paramatmani niriyate Aikena ramate jnani Evam vido mahamukta sarvada vartate buddha Tasya sarva prayatnena bhavavakrim karotya sarva sandeharahito mukto bhavati parvati mukti mukti vayam tasya jivaveta saraswati anena pranina sarve gurugitaya penato sarva siddhinga bhavanti mukti mukti na samshaya Satyam satyam pura satyam dharmyam satyam mayotam Gurugita samam nasti satyam satyam varane Eko deva eka dharma eka nishta param tapa Guru pada param natyam nasti padmam guru param Matadanya pitadanya Japam hina sanam kurvan Hina karma phalapradam Gurudikam dayaneva Sangrame pasangrate Japan jayam avapnoti Mamane mukti dayakam Sarva karma cha sarvatra Guruputra siddhyati Idam lahasyam nuvasyam Samvagre kathitam maya Sudgokyam cha prayatnena Mama kuncha priyakriti Swami mukya ganeshadi Krishna harinam saparvati Anasapena bhaktavyam Satyam satyam vadhamya Ati bhakta pachitaya Shraddha bhakti utaya cha सदा प्रिय अभक्ते वंचके धूर्ते पाखंडे नास्तिके नरे गुरुसाम्येन वक्तव्या गुरुगीता कराचना सागर समुद्धरणैकमन्त्रं ब्रह्मादिदेव मुनि पूजित सिद्धमन्त्रं दारिद्र्य दुःखमरोगविनाशमन्त्रं वन्दे महाभयहरं गुरुराजमन्त्रं श्रीस्कन्दपुराणे उत्तरप्रदेश्वर Bhaktane Kadekha Sarvadosha Vivarjita Niranandam Nirvakantam Nityanandam Namayam Samarutasmakansaram Samarukasukadiram Avadutam Namayam Avinashina Makaram Ekabhinyaya Tatmatam Vitaraga Bhayakrodham Nityanandam Namayam Nameho Name Deho Vinunamamamiti Devavirnaya Santushtam Avadutam Namayam Yanam Karmanam Tamasam Paramajitam Viyupam Deshoyam shobhanahito brahmana santu nirbhayaः sarve bhavantu sukhinah sarve santu niramaya sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkhabhavate sarvastarat durgani sarvo bhadrani pashyatu sarva kamanuvapnotu sarva sarvatmanatu swasti matrauta uteno astu swasti gurubhyo jagate purushebhyah vishwam subhutam suvidatnando astu Yoge Vadhushyema Surya Om Chikarum Sada Guru Chikarum Sada Jaya Gurudeva Mala Avinashi Pada Pada Parajete ज्योति दिखलाने वाले जय सद्गुरु जय सद्गुरु भगवान
morning and welcome. I'd like to take this occasion to welcome you to the 39th celebration of Baba Muktananda's Mahasamadhi. This is the lunar version. We had the solar version on October 2nd. And I was thinking, in fact, October. Here at Shanti Mandir, it has really been a month of celebration of one sort or the other. So we had the intensive on that occasion. We had Sharad Navaratra, that celebration, and now we're having this celebration. It's been a very fruitful, celebratory time. If you can think of the internal celebration process that happens on the spiritual journey. So fantastic. And Gurudev has been attracting many people to come and spend time here. And that's been fantastic for the ashram and the grounds and just everyone, really. So welcome all to this occasion. Gurudev's going to be speaking about this occasion, this topic. And I was asked to say a few words leading into it. And the topic of which is Baba Muktananda's company. Now, the way my mind thinks, that has a couple of connotations. His company or his company, you know, because around Baba Muktananda there was a lot of company at times, you know, hundreds of people that were moving with him as he toured in the West. And that company added to the experience of being around him and what that was like. But I guess one of the things I want to say, I want to have a disclaimer and say I'm going to say a few words about this, but it's very difficult to encapsulate what it was like to be around Baba Muktananda. And I think that's the way it is for the great sages. We can have the scriptural understandings and teachings about a great being, you know, or realized master, whatever you want to call him. But the actual experience is something altogether more mysterious. I think of a phrase, I think it's more of a Western phrase, that describes some people, and it goes something like, wow, that's a conundrum wrapped in an enigma. And I think of that non-scriptural description of Baba Muktananda, you know, a conundrum being a puzzle, a difficult puzzle, and enigma being inexplicable. So if you think about it, so I'm leading into that, and I'm gonna, the other disclaimer is that this is not going to be in a rational chronological order or even have much structure to it, really. But our scriptural, perhaps, structure for what I want to say is the one that talks about on the spiritual path there are three jewels, if you will. And one of the jewels are just the teachings, what is taught in the scriptures, you know, what has been passed down through generations and thousands of years that keeps us clear about what it really is about. It keeps it authentic so we don't go off and get strange and weird. The other is actually a community of like-minded seekers. It's an incredibly important aspect of the spiritual journey because it's so easy to drift into strange spaces or just to sort of fall off the side of what we're trying to accomplish. But the key one is the company of a great being. The company of a great being. Now, this is where it gets tricky because you read the scriptures and they kind of lay it all out and they talk about a great being and they give descriptions. But if you encounter one, it becomes more difficult to deal with. They are going according to the scriptures, but the way they do it. You know, Baba used to talk about one of the great sages that he ran across during his sadhana, Jipurana. And he said he was really an avadut. He would sit on a pile of garbage You know, why would you do that, right? That's how we think. And he said, but it was always, his body was pure, and it was like a perfume. And I think about that, and I think, there's a teaching in that. He's teaching, in a sense, this is my thought, that we are not that body. And when we go beyond it, when we reach another level and depth of being, we start to see that nothing can touch that inner consciousness or self, even if we're sitting on a pile of garbage. Now, there's people who would say, well, that's what we're all doing most of our lives anyway. But anyway, that's another story. But we get caught in the world, but if we find that place within us, we don't get caught. We don't get caught. We go beyond it. So what are some of the things that come to me when I think of not being able to describe? I think of Baba's teachings. Simple, straightforward. God dwells within you as you. You could find a version of that in the scriptures easily. And then he says things like, see God in each other. Meditate on yourself, your inner self. So I think of that and I think, see God in each other is like a Mahavakya. It's like the ultimate teaching because God dwells within. And then he gives us the practice and he says, meditate on the self because God dwells within you as you. And then he gives us another guideline, and that is see God in each other. Oh, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? But to do that, that is the practice, that is the sadhana. We can be awakened, we can receive the grace of the Guru, and that's what I would watch, as people came to him by the thousands, and they would be awakened at a touch, at a look, at a glance, at a comment, a word. So many stories that you hear over the years. Baba just looked at me. He just shook my hand. He hit me with the peacock feathers. And I was awakened. But then I didn't know what to do with that awakening. How do I proceed with this? So a story that I think of that's clearly not from the beginning of the time that I spent with Baba, but we were in Ganeshpuri. And for some reason, Baba had a thing about the ashram just not being cared for enough, because he was really strict on that. And so he came out one day and he had a broom. Now this is like one of the brooms in India, and it's just sort of wrapped. It's almost like, you don't have to keep peacock feathers there. It's almost like peacock feathers, but it's just a broom. And he's waving it, and he's saying, God, what are you doing? Come here, clean up this, sweep this, do that. And of course, when Baba starts doing that, everybody just starts kind of running in every direction, trying, to like, oh, okay, so I'll grab something, I'll do this. And then he just was sitting there waving that broom. And I think he actually later said something that Gurudev said last week, I think, about, because you think Baba's really upset, he's really angry, but he says something, he looks at people and he gives you that certain gleam in his eye. And the gleam in his eye is sort of saying, this is pretty good, isn't it? I'm moving people. And I think it wasn't like he was trying to fool or tease people. He was just, in my mind, I felt another level of the teaching. And the teaching was, and I think they came out with a video about it, and it was entitled, Sweep out your heart. Sweep out your heart. Clean it out of whatever impurities are there. And the ashram, the outer world, is just, it's just symbolic of that, really. The real teaching is to sweep out our heart and make it cleaner. And that's the practice, and that's what we call sadhana, spiritual practice. And it was always happening around Baba. It was always happening. It was always about, in a sense, I think of what are the essential teachings that for me maybe were primary. It was learn to keep your ego out of it. Learn to keep your ego out of it. That's the thing that's keeping us stuck. And so that's about living the teaching. Now, how did this happen? How does it play out? Because a lot of people, when they're asking me about time around Baba Muktananda and saying, oh, it must have been just so blissful and wonderful and, all of that. And yes. And this is where the contrast, the contradiction comes in. So people, when they particularly met him in the West and the programs and everything, everybody was just like transformed, and you just go into these high states of consciousness and wanting to spend more and more time with Baba, which of course we all did. And they would think, oh, you're so lucky to be around him, it's so great, I wish I could spend more time, I wish I could come to India. And Baba took jumbo jets of people to India. And you had some people who arrived, and the length of stay was going to be 3 or 4 months. After a week, they were just like, oh my God. It wasn't like the evening programs. I guess, let me put it that way. It was like, now you're in it. Now you're really doing the depths of sadhana. But there was something about being with Baba, if you could tune into it, it would keep you buoyant. And so, as challenging, as exciting, as difficult at times being around Baba Muktananda, most people would say that was the most amazing time of their life. I certainly would say that. There just was nothing like that. And you'd go from here to here in a moment. I can think of one time when one of the things I had the responsibility for around Baba was programming. And when we were in the West, we were doing just intensive after intensive. 3 weekends out of the month, we were doing intensives. And they were, as I was chatting with Paula recently, 2-day affairs with all sorts of stuff, talks on this, talks on that, and my role was to coordinate that, okay, as well as to be the MC of it. But in the end, it's always, Baba's approval, his tick or not. And I went to him one time with this program, and we just go through who's going to speak about this, and it's a Kundalini talk, it's experience talk, there's sharing, and who's going to lead the sharing. I just go through the schedule. Baba was like, ठीक, ठीक है. And I just felt something about his reaction, but he didn't say anything word-wise about it. But something was nagging in the back of my mind. Okay, we go ahead. The intensive happens. So we start, and there was a talk, and one of the Swamis was giving a talk before Baba came in. Baba comes in, doing the talk. He's got an urgency to his gait. He's like coming down the ramp into his seat, and I'm thinking, again, what's going on here? So the Swami finishes his talk, and Baba launches in to not his talk, but a commentary. And the commentary is on the intensive schedule, because that Swami was giving a talk about the subject of the intensive, which is what Baba always talked about. Oh, and did he tear into me? It was just like, in India, if you want to really embarrass someone, what you do is you ask them to speak on something, and you get someone to speak on that same subject before them. And it's like beams, he's looking at me. The whole time he's talking about this, he's just looking down at me like, ugh. And so then I understood what that feeling was that I had about his reaction to the point for me here is there's a number of things in it, but one of the things is he being around him, he's kind of teaching you to tune in more to something inside of you. That if you feel that, that's not quite right, explore that. And the other is, he's going to use everything to teach. So rather than say, oh no, you shouldn't do it like that in the program, in a sense to save me, he just lets it go along. And now he's got a really powerful teaching point. you know, so there's over 1,000 people in the intensive and he's doing this whole thing. Great time, made his point, and I was just a pile of whatever. And so the time around him, being in his company was, it was exhilarating, it was mysterious, it was challenging. I'm thinking of, at time it was even, I can remember just a little tiny instance when he was in the courtyard in Ganeshpuri, and he would sit and he would, Viju the elephant would come out and he would feed the elephant and everybody would gather around like this. And I noticed that at times people were really close to the space that Viju, it's an elephant. We're not talking about a dog or a cat or something. We're talking about an elephant. And people would crowd in close behind Viju. And this one occasion, I don't know what it was, but there was an incredibly loud sound which startled all of us, which was not the big deal, but it startled Viju. And he just lurched backwards, and there were people right behind him. Baba was not a big person. He wasn't tall, he wasn't heavy. He just reached out and grabbed Viju's trunk and stopped him dead in his tracks. Now you think, how could he do that? That's not really possible, you know? And Baba was not into supernatural powers and all of those things. I think people, when they think about it, and certainly when I think about it, it was just always being uplifted, even when you felt you were going the other way. I don't know how and just learning to understand that everything is some teaching. We would sit near Baba during darshan, and there would sometimes be over 1,000 people. And so he would break it into 2 lines just to get people moving. And everything had to be quick, everything had to be fast. So he would say, fast, fast, fast. And, I would get the message, to tell people that. So you just had to be totally focused. You weren't just sitting there, quote, enjoying the occasion. You were like serving. So you had to be absolutely tuned in to what was going on. Because he may sometimes not even say something. He may just look at you. And you knew what that look meant, to say X or do this or what have you. And then the other thing that came from my time doing the correspondence as his secretary in that role was, in terms of the teachings, those simple teachings he gave, see God in each other. 2 things. One, I think it was a reporter asked him, Swami Muktananda, you say your teaching, one of your main teaching is see God in each other, see God in the universe. So, do you see God in that tree? And Baba said, no, I see God as that tree. Just a subtle shift in awareness. I don't see him in the tree, I see him as the tree. And so you start to realize he's constantly teaching. And many people would have issues and complaints and want to tell Baba how to do his job. I know it seems funny, but that's how we are as human beings. And one of the things that just came again and again to me was that I would hear Baba's a phrase, he would say, who made that person the judge? And I would think on that. And what he was saying was, that's a trap. To judge others, to find fault in others, to think the problem is out there and not in here is the worst thing you can do. So if you wanted to get Baba's fire, and he had a lot of it, then start criticizing other people or situations, or thinking you're above and you can just judge. And so when we would come with correspondence and letters, we would review it. I would sometimes sit with Gurudev and we say, maybe not put that in there. Because sometimes people would write letters like that with one question, but it was all the lead up, and then we said, boil it down to the essence of what it was. And in particular, if it was about complaining, we just had to work out a way of conveying the essence without getting into that space, because we were the ones there. So if you put all of that, and Baba would get fiery about it, who would the fire go at? Yeah, exactly. So we said, we don't need to be in the line of fire with this, so we were just... But I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is that it was uplifting, it was just magical, really. And yet you had to be on your toes the whole time. And by that I mean you had to realize it's always about, to be with a great being is always about the highest. Even though it may seem like mundane, it's still always about the highest. And doing it. Just winding up a thought and a quote that Baba had, which it's one of my favorite. It's simple. He said, people read and read the cookbook, and sometimes that could be the scriptures, but they're starving to death because they don't cook anything. So by reading and reading, you don't get anything. So you should meditate. And that was always his teaching. And he said that to everybody, no matter what they came to him with. And to me, Baba Muktananda's company was always about that. Uplift, see your true self, and share that with others in whatever way you can. Baba Muktananda's company. Thank you. Now, Gurudev will speak to us.
Thank you, Larry. We used to have a Baba's talk. At first I thought we'll call it that, but then I was afraid that Larry might go into that format. So I thought we'll call it Baba's company, safer. It's like a moment of your time to just get yourself firmly established, seated. So if you're sitting on the floor, you can sit in Sukhasana, where your one knee is just above the foot, the other knee is just above the other foot. So that's the first. Sukhasana, that which is comfortable. The second is half lotus, where one leg is underneath and the other leg is above. Then there is the lotus. I prefer the right leg first and then the left leg. Just for a moment. So whichever one of the three that you feel comfortable in, foot under the knee, half lotus, lotus. Just take a breath in and allow yourself to rise up, seated, firmly established in the knowledge of consciousness. And just opening yourself up. Open your arms, left to the left side, right to the right side. The elbow is bent, elbows are bent. Embrace life, embrace the world. And as you embrace, bring both palms together, raise the elbows so they're in a straight line, bring the palms down towards your heart. Allow yourself to feel both palms pressing towards each other in the opposite direction. Allow yourself to feel the energy of consciousness. Take a moment. If you are with us in this room, if you are live with us, or even if you watch afterwards, do this. Sukhasana, half lotus, or the Padmasana, lotus, Padmasana. Firmly seated in the knowledge of consciousness, of Atman, of self. For your heart, just say to yourself, Namaste. Just bow your head towards your own fingers. Salutations to self. Baba Muktananda would say with great respect and love, welcome from the heart. So for a long time I felt I needed to find my own version. So I got it this week. This is the Swami Nityananda version. Firmly rooted in the knowledge of the self, open to embrace Namaste salutations. I've shared this often, that whenever it was translated with great respect and love, I welcome you. In the Hindi language, there is no I. So I, somewhere along the way, changed it to a heartfelt welcome. But then I have to feel it from the heart. So in Hindi we could get away with Sabika Bade Prem or Sanman Se Hardik Swagat. And there is no I that says I welcome you. But every translator translated as I welcome you. And over time, as I have thought about it, and I thought, how do we include an I in the sage's words? When he doesn't even identify with that I. A saint says, जिसका दिल पर दिलबर का दिल बसता है, जिसका दिल पर दिलबर का दिल बसता है, उन मस्तों का देखो ऐसा उल्टा रास्ता है. When a person in where normally should be his or her own heart, it is the heart of the beloved. So I asked Prabhupada's brother Nirmal to explain what is that the poet saint here is trying to say. So he wrote back, he said, technically it's not possible physically that the heart of someone else is in place of your heart. I'm not talking about heart transplant or heart surgery or anything here, but I'm just talking about in a normal situation, you have a heart and that heart is your heart. Okay, even if it's transplanted, it's still your heart. But here, the poet saint is saying, the great sage has allowed the beloved to become settled and established in this, in that space. वह मूर्खों से सीखते हैं, पंडित को पढ़ाते हैं. Such is that entire experience, which is opposite to how we normally work, that They learn from fools, the wise people or the pandits, the learned people. शूरों से लड़ते हैं, गिदड़ों को देखकर वो भाग जाते हैं. They fight with those we think who are brave, and they run away from cowards. And this all has a lot of meaning in it, but you have to understand it first. उन मस्तों को देखो, ऐसा उल्टा रास्ता है. Look at these. Must means somebody who is immersed in the experience of the ananda, the consciousness. Their whole way is opposite to what society considers normal. उन ऐसे मस्तों से सब बादशाह भी मांगते हैं. From such beings, even Devi Singh says that such beings, when you look at them, their way is different, is opposite, contrary to how society looks at it. So, I liked what Levi said, conundrum, enigma, is what this poet saint is trying to share with us here. Because we live in our jar. For those of you remember from 2-3 weeks ago, we live in our jar, we live in our box. And the way we look at life or perceive life is from that little jar, from that little space. Now what Larry shared about the elephant, we've heard this many a times. Larry mentioned the trunk. But we've even seen, for those of you who've been with elephants or been on elephants, the Mahut, the caretaker of the elephant, has a ankush, it's called. I forget the English word now, where there's a metal part bent and pulls. So that hurts some part of the elephant back here. And so that the elephant is controlled. And then that other straight part, sometimes he hits it into the body to control the elephant. Vijayananda, the elephant, grew quite huge. So huge that his head is today in the Prince of Wales Museum in Mumbai. I don't know if it's still there, but it was. And Baba, one of these incidents that Larry is talking about, when he decides that he is not going to cooperate, the elephant. And the Mahut does his metal thing that he does with the ankush. Baba simply gets up and grabs what we would call the earlobe, the bottom, and pinches it. He was taught to raise his trunk and make his elephant sound, bend down to his front knees and offer salutations to Baba and to guests who came. But sometimes he was not in the mood. He didn't want to raise his trunk. He didn't want to make his sound. He didn't want to bow. The Mahut caretaker tried as much. The elephant did not budge. Now this 5 foot 6 inches, 150-pound man would come. And the elephant, I think, weighs a ton. And Baba would just look, like Larry said, and not say anything. And whatever that conversation was, Baba Muktananda and the elephant, he quietly raised his trunk, he did his sound, and he bowed. So when you think of all this, you begin to ask yourself, now, how do you even explain anything to those who live inside a jar? Because you of his hold. We walk, we hold each other, we hold arms. Baba didn't do any of that. But yet sometimes, just like he held the elephant, he would hold you, the individual, because a point had to be made. And a point had to be made. So you got it or you didn't get it. That's how I look at it. I think it worked both ways, that either you got it or you didn't get it. And those who didn't get it, never got it, will never get it. Maybe they'll get it in some lifetime. And either you got it and you got it, and you got it, and you never moved away from it. Because what you have to do is get out of the way. You have to get out of the way and realize this poem, Jiska dil par dilbar ka dil basta hai. That beloved has to take the space. And why in society today we have the issues that we have? Because we have not allowed this to happen. We say, I love you. But it's just an external. Please don't misunderstand me. I invite you to understand me. I know I am very peculiar. And I wish to stay on that side of the spectrum. I don't think that I've ever been normal. I want to be, but try as I might. I met Baba Muktananda in the womb of my mother. So the touch probably took place inside, is how I look at it and think about it. Born, met him, and I think in 15 days, meaning come out of the hospital, and he's waiting for me, so mother took me. How she took me, I don't know, but I imagine this, being cradled in his arms at 15 days. Because in those days in India, they didn't keep you in the hospital too long. They needed the bed for the next person. So, and especially when you're in, which was normal in those days, and the mothers were also mothers. I won't make other comments. So, I have pictures from when I was a little bit when the body was a bit bigger, I would say, in his arms. And then I often try to share with people, either you love the Guru or you don't. Either you love the Guru or you don't. There is no two things about it. And that is how you have to be about life. I found a quote by Maya Angelou. My mission in life is not merely to survive. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. I thought this suited me. I don't want to just survive and die one day. No. I want, as you can see right now, passion. Compassion, I don't know, but okay, I'll try. Humor, yes. Style, yes. And often I find all we want to do in society is just copy the other. We don't look, what is my style? And don't be, I want to at the same time when I said I'm peculiar, I want to tell you, don't be weird. Peculiar is different and weird is different. Weird is creepy. Peculiar is not. I am clear of that, I don't know if you are. Because I don't want, when I say style, people to think that that means, blah, blah, blah. No. Peculiar and style, yes. Try to understand me, okay? Because I am peculiar. And I lived with Baba Muktananda physically for 20 years. And I don't feel that these 39 years since his passing, that maybe at times the mind forgets, but as time goes on, the presence is palpable. At least for me, and I'm sure to many others. So, I often think of what Rumi says when I think of Baba Muktananda and when we try to understand. Rumi says, "O you who stab the egoless one with the sword, you are stabbing yourself with it. For the egoless one has passed away and he is safe. He dwells in safety forever." He dwells in safety forever. His form has passed away. He has become a mirror. There is nothing other but the image of another's face. If you spit at it, you spit at your own face. If you strike the mirror, you strike yourself. If you see an ugly face in the mirror, it is you. If you see God, it is you. He is neither this nor that. He is pure and free from ego. He puts your own image before you. So when you think of this message of Baba Muktananda, "Aapko dhyao, aapko pujo, aapko vando, aapka samman karo, aap mein hi aap hokar aapka naam rehta hai." Meditate on the self. Worship that self. Honor that self. Offer salutations to that self. Because your God dwells within you as you. Your God dwells within you as you. No scripture. Krishna shifts the entire responsibility for not realizing the self upon the individual seeker himself, and attributes it entirely to the sadhaka's lack of self-application. What Larry just said. You read the cookbook, you read the cookbook, you read the cookbook, you read the cookbook. And then what? You never enter the kitchen. So, Vedanta being a subjective science, it is not sufficient that we know how to eradicate our weakness and cultivate our inward strength. But we must be able to live up to those ideals and try to bring about the necessary readjustments in ourselves. Very few can discover in themselves this necessary urge to evolve. Why? Because we are caught in the marketing of society. We are caught in the marketing of society. Think about it. What stops me from being peculiar? Any one of us. Because society tells us whatever it tells us, and we believe in that. And it's just amazing as I go through life and I talk to people and I tell them things and they go, "What did you say?" I said, "Yeah, that's what you heard." And they say, "But I didn't understand." I said, "No, it's not you didn't understand. You don't want to understand. You understood it very well the very first time you were told, but you decide or choose not to understand." It's as simple as that. People tell me it needs to be explained. I say, no, it does not need to be explained. Nobody is stupid. We choose to ignore the facts. I know people philosophize with me. That's the karma. That's the destiny. Then I ask them, then why do you freak out over other things? Why in those things do you not say, that's the destiny, that's the karma? When it works for you, yeah, that's the karma, that's the destiny. And when it doesn't work for you, then you get crappy. Why don't you apply the philosophy everywhere? In all situations, in all circumstances, everywhere say, that's it. It doesn't work for me. I think, as Swamiji says, adjustments need to be made. And this is to me what sadhana is about. Okay, I'll make my adjustments. I'm willing, I would like, I want. But even for that, I need to first realize and accept what are the adjustments that I need to make. Because again, I like to glaze over life. When Maya Angelou here says, my mission in this life is not merely to survive, which is what most of us do. We think, oh, I made it through this day. Tomorrow's Sunday, I don't have to worry about it. That's how we look at life. So you sleep in on Sunday, except for those who come to Satsang. And some of you love online because you can just wake up, put the TV on, and be in your pajamas with your cup of coffee or breakfast or whatever and say, I'm at Satsang. But you're not really at Satsang because you're still lying on your bed inside your covers. I can just imagine this. I imagine this. Because people tell me when I visit them in India, it started already back in, I don't know when, satsang in the mornings on Sundays by different people, half an hour. And people will tell me, so nice, you can just be home with your cup of chai and just, listen and not listen. Meaning listen and choose not to listen. But now you're sitting in front of me, you have no choice but to at least randomly listen to something, and maybe it strikes you, or you just say, it's not the Shakti. There's a verse in the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which I love, which says, Chaturvidha bhajante imam janaha sukritno arjuna arto jignasu arti cha bhadatarshava. Krishna tells there are 4 types of people. One in distress, one who is a seeker, one who needs financial help, and the last one, which in that verse before he said, there, is a seeker of the truth, is a jnani. So we fall mostly into the first 3 categories. Either I'm in distress, so we come, whether it's to a temple, whether it's to an ashram, whether it's to some form of this kind of a path. Because I want to get away from everything else. What is life and what am I doing in life and what is going to happen in life, and etc., etc. In the last, I will simply say this. Why 59 years later, the same passion of love for the path, for the Guru, for the teachings, for the practice exists? Because my mother made it very clear to us, we come here for Baba. We don't come from the drama surrounding. We don't come for the people surrounding. We don't come for anything but keep the focus. And why we get lost, why we go off why we do what we do, is because we listen to all of the chatter, all of the advice, all of the consultations that we get. And so then I get off my own inner experience of what somebody took me and said, okay, now sit firmly. I remember in 1989 in Michigan and Arbor in a situation, some lady came running to me and said, you go to so and she will protect you. And in my room was my traveling picture of Bhagwan and Baba, and I said, look, those two are the protectors. And if they cannot do it, nobody else can, and don't you ever come back and give me that advice. Because if I don't have faith in them after all these years, I was probably 30 by then, I said, I will never have faith in anyone else. She just backed out of the room. That's how you have to become. Because people will give you plenty of advice on where you can get blessings, on where you can get love, on where you can get blah, blah, blah. BLAH, BLAH, BLA, BLA, however you want to call it. And you can fill your mind with that BLA, 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 and never arrive at the truth. And then you'll blame Baba. He didn't do anything for me. My years were wasted. All that was just a lot of hype. Huh? You hear that. I hear that. I was only 20 when he passed, 4 days shy of it, of being 20. So you cannot tell me I was brainwashed. I was too young to be brainwashed. At least I think I was too young to be brainwashed. I didn't know if I should say I stuck in there, or I am stuck in there, or I am hanging in there. I don't know what are the right words to say. But all I want to say is I am in there. And why? Because the Sufis are very out there in how they express and how they say it. What are my credentials that I might claim your love? What are my credentials that I might claim your love and love sickness and get a particle of it? It is not fitting for me to even pronounce the sacred word love. Of course, I am completely unfit to call myself a lover. He says further, I went to the, I'm just stay. It's Satsang, they can manage. Tell them, just manage. One, huh? Yes, you've already been once, please. Once you sit in the front, all of you, once you sit, just sit. It's distracting. It's okay, they're making lunch. They have to figure out how to make lunch. And that's what, when I said firmly established, firmly seated. You're so messed up here. And not only are you messed up, you mess others up. Stop this. We'll die tomorrow, and then what? Just for some piece of food that we don't even eat and then throw away, compost it? Come on. Find what is important in life. Come to the reality of what is true. That's why when you read these things, you ask and you ask, what am I saying? You're busy looking there? Stop. It's okay. That's what I'm saying. Keep the focus. Become clear, folks. All you're doing is wasting your life looking everywhere else, but looking where you should look. And I'm not saying me, okay? Don't get me though. Because otherwise you'll just be whirling and whirling and whirling and arriving nowhere. frustrated, angry, fed up, etc., etc., etc. If one should be frustrated, it should be me. I was the king of a huge organization at 20. I could go anywhere, I could do anything, I could be anywhere, I could meet anybody. And such was the power of that seat that even if some big person wanted to meet, when Baba Muktananda got his green card in 1978 from the United States of America, the entire United States consulate embassy from Mumbai came to meet him, to take his fingerprints, to do all of the needful things. He thanked them. And this is not hearsay, I was there in person. Because a lot of what we hear often is hearsay. And we don't know if it's true, but we hyperbole it. And I try not to do that. Because I think I have enough of my own material in his company, in his presence, that I don't need somebody else telling me. We thank you for what you do. Now, whether he came on his own powers or if he was told or what, I don't know. And I remember hardly being 14, because at that time I was considering myself going to UCLA to study engineering, to think, here we are thinking, how do I get a visa to go? And here's a small-bodied monk to whom the entire system has come. And when he landed in the US and said, how long will you stay? He said, for as long as you will let me. So, what I'm trying to share with you here is what we celebrate today is no man, no individual, no person, but consciousness. What we did here for the last 9 days, Jagadamba, the mother of the universe, Shakti. And for such beings, what we strive for is natural to them. So the poet saint continues, I went to the physician and spoke to him of my pain of love. He advised me, stay away from all worldly talks. Basically, it's what I'm telling you. Stay away from all worldly talk and quote silence. I asked what food I should eat. We do all this, What should I eat? He answered, drink the blood of your heart, that is the agony of separation. When I asked what I should avoid, desire of the world. I have two quotes that maybe express a little bit. I love them myself. And of course, I learned all this being around Baba, because Baba is, when he spoke about Zipurwana, about Harigiri Baba, about all these great saints, you read them in the book Secret of the Siddhas. In the first part, it talks about all of the peculiar beings he met in his life. Somebody who collected stones, somebody who took baths, somebody who ate and burped, And different things. So, poet saint writes, Kvachid bhumau shayya Kvachidapi cha paryanka shayanam, kvachid shakahara, kvachidapi cha shalyodana ruchi, kvachid kantadari, kvachidapi cha divyam baradharo, manasvi karyarti, naganayati dukkham nacha sukham. To them, the bare ground is their bread. The earth where they lie is their bed. And sometimes the most comfortable bed. It doesn't matter to them whether you tell them lie here or lie on a comfortable bed. Sometimes a delicious feast, like we've had for the last 9 days and we will have now. And sometimes Baba Muktananda shared in his sadhana one day, sadhus in the early days lived on bhiksha. Bhiksha was you take your bowl, which is as big as your palm, and whatever, some would go to one home only, some would go to 3 homes, and of course then some go to home, till their bowl is full. And then some sadhus are picky too. They won't go to certain types of homes or certain types of women who cook, certain places. They are picky because they are working with energy. We don't even know what this means. Because we don't even have taste of the tongue, we don't even have smell of the nose, we don't even have sounds. So get yourself first acclimated to that, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. So Baba said one day, lunchtime, there was nothing. He didn't get any bhiksha, he didn't get anything. He said, it's hungry, because he ate once every 24 hours, and once every 24 hours, whatever he got in that little begging bowl, bhiksha bowl of his. So he said, I was in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is the desert of India. So he took some sand, put it in his cloth, took some of his water. Sadhus also carry their own water, because they don't want water that's touched by somebody else. So they carry a kamandal. You'll see in some pictures of Baba Muktananda. He said, I took that water, I put it through the sand, I caught it in my bowl, I drank that water. That was my lunch that day. And then the next meal is after 24 hours. And when he said this, we were in Oakland in the winter of 1979. He was talking to, I think, Claudio Narahanga or Shiva or some of these people, and he was just joyously sharing what might have been a painful experience at that time. My mind, I was 16 and some months now, what if he didn't get something the next day? Because as I said the other day, I love food. So my mind was like, what if the next day also his bowl is empty? Would he do the same? And I told myself then, yes. Having known him well enough, I said, yes, he would do the same thing. He would take his sand, he would take his water, because, as he says, that's what it is today. That's the menu. Sometimes living like a king, which is what Baba did towards the end of his life. Sometimes torn clothes. But a person who has made up his or her mind does not care about hardship or comfort. This is where we need to bring ourselves. Another one says, Kvachin muro vidvan, Kvachidapi cha madhaja vibhavaha, Kvachid bhranta saumyaha, Kvachid jagacharachara kalitaha, Satata paramam anandam sukhitaha. Sometimes it will appear that he is a fool. Sometimes a sage. Sometimes you'll find him living amidst royal splendor. Somewhere along the way, I think after 71 or 72, somebody gave Baba Muktananda a gold thali, a gold Indian plate. And the gold vatis, gold meaning gold, okay? Not golden like, but gold, made out of gold. And a glass. And then it was in the newspaper, some jealous person would have reported that Muktananda eats of gold plate. So he got that article cut and framed it, and we had it in the house that he lived in. And sometimes when he felt funny or in a jovial mood and he thought that this person would get it, he said, look what they wrote about Muktananda. I read it quite often because I cleaned his house, and I thought, why would one want to? But it didn't matter to him. Somebody gave me a gold plate, gold cups, gold glass. Hey, as he says here, so that's the word splendor. Sometimes just lying like a python, which we experience with Bhagavan Nityananda. Just not interested in any movement at all. Just absorbed in the experience of consciousness. Sometimes moving like Larry said. Baba sometimes had this like a rush, got to get somewhere. Get where? Get somewhere. Sometimes very kind, very peaceful. And sometimes, as you heard, take the broom, sweep out your heart. It's a wonderful video to watch because it's all him just yelling. And I think it's 45 minutes or 50 minutes of just that. He goes to the entire ashram and finally ends up in the space underneath the water tank where Venkappa used to live. And he finds it very funny himself. Of course, everybody else is all worked up. And that day I was not in the ashram, okay? There's a period of my life from 77 to 78 when I spent time in India, in Mumbai, going to the Polytechnic because I thought I was going to become an engineer. So I was preparing myself, working on lathe machines, etc., etc. So I missed that. So maybe my heart is not clean, I don't know. But anyway, I watched the video and I do what I need to do. So sometimes honored, sometimes insulted, sometimes unknown. It doesn't matter to them, You go to places and they're like, wow, somewhere you go, nobody knows you. I still remember sometime in the 90s, one day landing in Mumbai, and a customs officer just stops me. He says, from where? And I knew I was in Mumbai, so I said Ganeshpuri. Immediately folded his hands and bowed. Please go. So when we think or ask ourselves, where do I belong? I don't know that custom officer. The custom officer doesn't know me. It's at the Mumbai airport. There's plenty of them running around. But just the fact that he even knew who I am associated with makes me holy. Is how I felt in that moment. So I realized being lives always with supreme bliss. So this is the Muktananda. This is the being whom we celebrate today. Not the man, not the individual, not the person. And I want to say again what I've said before. I say again, I love the Guru. And I would love for each one of us to come to this space within ourselves. Forget all the other nonsense. Forget all the other blah, blah, blah. Forget worrying about all of what you think bothers you. Realize that you are bothering yourself. We don't get it because we think Have you ever looked at that? That maybe the adjustments need to be made within myself. It's a poem which came because when I finished my Thursday talk, I thought, oh my God, I got to get ready for Sunday. You know? And now, when we finish today, then I got to get ready for, we're going to Virginia next week. 2-3 days there. And there'll be people who will have been with Master Charles, Swami Vivekananda. There may be other people who probably never even met him, who have no idea of where they have ended up in Faber, Virginia, in a remote place for an autumn retreat. And finding this peculiar person. Master Charles was more peculiar. A lot of scented oils. I loved him for that because I got to know him somewhere in the mid-70s. And then we spent some time together before he went off and started Synchronicity. And then we'd meet each other almost every year. He made it a point to come meet me and spend a few hours in the afternoon to just express his love and his feelings and his emotions. Like I think it was 1987, to just say, I'm there if you want. And he stayed there. He was there, always there. But talking to him was like talking to a dream. So I always called him when I knew I had 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Because all conversations had to be at the theta level. Because he talked about alpha, beta, theta, you know. But this was what surrounded Baba Muktananda. We often hear that King Akbar or the Emperor Akbar had space. There's a picture, I think, Baba, myself, Larry, Shantananda, Samatananda, and everybody's huddled like you do in a football game. Baba, me, the translator, and the three of them. I don't know what the secret was. I don't remember. Because the courtyard may have been full of people, I don't know, but the photo is just focusing on us. Baba maybe wanted to say a joke. Because sometimes it happened, somebody in the ashram was being themselves. And then Baba would call whoever he thought would be appropriate to handle that situation and give them the mantra of how to go handle that situation. Now, again, from the jar viewpoint, it didn't make sense. But remember, jiske dil par dilbar ka dil basta hai. I often hum the refrain of this poem to myself. Hum deewanon ki महफिल में हर रोज बहारें होती है हम मस्तानों की बातों में सोहम की झंकारें होती है हम दीवानों की महफिल में. Mahfil means a gathering. And I often think, what would such a gathering be like? Where it's all ecstatic beings. In my own mind, I think one even more ecstatic than the other. Not that there is such a thing, but I just try to imagine this. That one is bubbling forth and the other is swimming in it. Because I tell you, imagination is free. There's nothing wrong in imagining that there is a gathering of ecstatic beings and they're just, having fun. And so they say it's like springtime. There's a bursting forth. And what is bursting forth is Soham, the mantra Soham. That's what's resounding. That sometimes see Baba Muktananda sitting with one person for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and they would talk. And then I'd sometimes think to myself, what would Baba be talking to this person about? But then you tell him, come back tomorrow at this time. And the person very happily come back. And that thing. But they already did what they had to do yesterday, what they're going to do today. And sometimes I would hear and the person would just feel, Of course, I was only 15, 16, 18, not 20 yet. So I can imagine my little mind, teenage mind, trying to figure all this out. I don't know if I figured it out yet, but it's a lot of fun just imagining. So therefore, this poem makes even more sense. Because, as Adi Shankar says, it's aparoksha anubhuti. It is direct experience, not through someone else's eyes. ये दुनिया वाले क्या जाने किसे सच्ची खुमारी कहते हैं. ये दुनिया वाले क्या जाने किसे सच्ची खुमारी कहते हैं. ये हंसते हंसते रोते हैं. ये हंसते हंसते रोते हैं. जी कर के भी मरते हैं. हम देख चुके इस माया की कच्ची ही दीवारें होती है. हम दीवानों की महफिल में. So what are they talking about? What are they discussing? What are they, And we can imagine the poet saint who has even composed this, whether it's him or his disciple, I don't know, because there's no name. Then what do people of the world even know? What is the real truth? What was it last week? Gathering around the lake of doubt, chattering away, wasting time. That's what he's saying here, simply. They are laughing, everybody's laughing, oh, ho, 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 but they are really crying. And I'm not crying out of sadness, okay? Just to make it clear, because you might say you are crying too, but I'm crying because I'm crying. And the poet saint here says, and we have seen that these are all walls that can just take a sledgehammer and just boom. Implode, explode. That's Maya. That is what we are holding on to. That's why become clear on why you are here, why you're in this life, the purpose. Strive, passion, or you'll just one day die and you'll be like, worthless. Seriously. आंखों में पर्दा हो जिसके गुमराह बने और घबराए. हासिल न हुआ तो हैरान है और पाकर के भी इतराए. हमको है पता मिलने भी बिछड़न की दरारें होती है. हम दीवानों की महफिल में. The eyes, for those who've had cataracts, it's like a veil. And people tell me, it's all fuzzy when you have cataracts. I can see you because you're close, but otherwise everything else is fuzzy. So the poet saint here says, it's like everyone has this curtain and they are just lost. They look like they are going somewhere. But it's like those of you who come to Shanti Mandir Walden for the first time, and at night you get out of Namaste and you go, where do I go? They get something, they're excited. They don't get something, they're upset. It's life, no? Something comes your way, you're happy, but you're still disappointed, but it's not exactly how you wanted it or imagined it to be. So he says here, everything in this life, separation is built into it, or expiration is built into it. So whatever you think you have acquired, there's going to come a time it's no longer. You yourself will no longer be there. Forget something else. दीपक के लिए दीपक की गरज क्यों, वो तो स्वयं प्रकाशक है, वो खुद ही का आशिक है, खुद ही खुद का माशुक है। गुरुदेव के ज्ञान की ख्वाब में भी, गुरुदेव के ज्ञान की ख्वाब में भी भरपूर बहुचावे होती है, भरपूर बहुचावे होती है। A lamp does not need a lamp is self-effulgent. So when we think we're going to go and explain to the Master, what are we going to explain? Because he is his own beloved. The Master is his own lover. Because he has realized God dwells within you as you. There's nothing else out there. Whatever is here. And he says, the dreams of knowledge of Gurudev are filled with droplets of illumination. It's the dreams of the knowledge of Gurudev. All I experience is that bliss. गहरा ही में बैठा हो उसको, चंचल लहरें क्या करती है, ना पूर्ण स्थिति वालों पे असर, बाहर जो कुछ भी गुजरती है। कोई क्या जाने इस तृप्ति की अद्भुत ही डंकारें होती है, हम दीवानों की महफिल में। I think of this particular line often, गहरा ही में बैठा वो उसको. Seated in the depths of one's own being. A person, an individual, who has become so firmly established in the knowledge, in the experience, and just simply seated. Chanchal lehre kya karti hai? What do these surface movements, what can they do to such a being? Because they are whole, they are complete. None of this which takes place on the outside affects them. He ends with a wonderful thought. How can an ordinary person even come to know what this contentment is? How can we, inside our jar, even experience or know what that expansion is? So how can we even understand what is the taste of that? I'm reminded of a moment in Ganeshpuri. For those of you who were there before 1978, right next door to the ashram was a very little restaurant called Ambika Bhuvan. In the early days of the ashram, we had our breakfast there, we had our lunch there, we had dinners there. And for those of you, remember at night in the dark, Baba would serve prasad, and that lady, Ambika, Amba, would bring a big plate of whatever she had made that day for him to serve prasad. How the economics of all this worked, I don't know. I was too young to know, to find out. I just know that she brought a big tray. Our job was to organize the tray for Baba, and he would have his dinner. Everybody would come into the courtyard, maybe 10 after 7. It was dark. For those of you who think this is dark, that was dark. There was not a single light. Baba sat, and in front of him was steps. He had his legs on the step, and he had that big parat, that big thing on his thighs. The left side came men, on the right side came women. He had no teeth, he had no glasses, he had nothing. It was pitch black. And he just took, just took and gave it. And your hand had to be in the right place for that to happen. So when you think the Guru teaches meditation, yes, he does. He teaches meditation, that you either mess it, you lose it, or you get it and get it. So the whole practice in that few minutes of waiting for him was to just figure out how to have your hands just right. So if in case today he give you lots of prasad, because it all depended on so much which we can't even express. Or sometimes you just got a little bite. And you could be jealous, you could be blah, blah, blah. Why him so much? Why her so much? Why this so much? Because people would go outside into the light and compare. Which is stupid, I think. Somehow we were taught you just as you walked away. End of story. What you ate, you don't know. You just imagine that you ate grace. It was sweet, it was spicy, it was raw, it was cooked, it was whatever. Didn't matter. What you ate was the Shakti of the Guru. But again, the blah, blah, blah people, forgetting the focus, looking, what'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? I'm going to take some home. For who? For what? When you didn't get it yourself, you think the person at home is going to get it? Baba used to share a story. A king one day wanted to organize for his minister to go quietly bring the cobbler and wanted initiation. So the cobbler, the old cobblers, for those of you remember, they used to have a tool and to dip it in the water, and then they would sharpen it, and that's how they worked. So the cobbler comes with his water, and the Guru wants initiation. The cobbler gives him that water and says, drink this. That's initiation. King says, okay, you go, I'll drink. So the king drinks it, but he spills it all over his shirt. Shirt goes to wash. The daughter of the dhobi, the laundry person, somehow knows and licks the shirt of the king. And she gets it. The king finds out. He calls her now because he thinks, okay. And he says, tell me the secret. She says, oh king, I offer you my salutations. Because of you, I have what I have. You might be thinking, what's he saying? What am I going to lick? What am I going to drink? What am I going to eat? First decide whether you are in distress, whether you need, some physical, emotional, whatever help, or whether you're just seeking, or whether you are a knower filled with devotion. Which one of these are you? Or are you still in the blah, blah, blah land? Shantimandi is very clear, focused upon what we do here. There is total clarity. You get caught in the distractions. Don't blame Shanti Mandir. Don't blame Baba Muktananda. The purpose of what we do here is we'll throw it away because that's not how you expected the package. And I say this from experience. I don't share this just from books or from poetry or from what other saints or saints or people have said. This is my own personal story, situation, experience of life. I lived with Baba, yes, I can't deny that. I have pictures to prove it. I don't have markings to prove it anymore, but I did them. Markings on the cane. But you'll see, yes, there are pictures of him, maybe sometimes holding the ear, sometimes very sternly looking at you. Even the day I took sannyas. I almost brought that picture with me, but I think it's up in my room. I look at all this to look at what transpired is what the logical, rational mind wants to understand, but there are no words. Because therefore, what I said to you on Thursday, that prayer, Tuze Paya Maze Bhala Ekatrata Sarvakar. He Chidei Nityananda Sadguru Maze Ai. That this is the only prayer. That may the feet always remain on the head, may always be humble enough that at all times, O Savior, Protector, Caretaker, however you want to view the Guru as, and O Mother Nityananda, this is the prayer. So as we honor, celebrate, each one of us, I'm sure, has our own wow moment. But I want you to realize that it is not simply an external moment. I want that every cell, every pore, every part of you feels that. That as you even take your mind to that moment. I don't want you to get stuck in that day, in that time period, in that era. No, no, no. You have misunderstood me then. I want you to bring that very feeling of consciousness, of grace, of truth to the here and now. So talk to yourself. How can I make my life so it's filled with passion, filled with style, filled with humor? And humor also not shallow, silly, stupid humor, but humor from that gut, from the depths of your being. The joy that you feel, that you experience, a joy that you can share. A joy that is palpable. A joy that even an unknown person that it can throb in the being of that person. So I was grateful. I am grateful. I'll be forever be grateful for this presence, for this Shakti, for this blessing, whatever it is that we think of it as. And to know that it is there at all times. present, real, palpable. And if you ask me how was it then, I would say wonderful. If you ask me how has it been since, I would say wonderful. And if you ask me how is it now, I think you see it, you feel it. I can't express it any better. How will it be? I think that same feeling that was there from the mother's womb just simply continues. I must say I'm grateful to my parents for their belief in the Guru, for their understanding. They were two unique individuals who walked the path in their own unique ways, which allowed us the freedom to find our own path. And I say the same of Baba Muktananda. He did not imitate Bhagwan Nityananda. He was simply Swami Muktananda. So let each one of us find the expression of the truth that is real for us, that is true for us. Live in that experience. So as we began, find the asana that's comfortable. Sthiram Sukham Asanam, says Patanjali. Sukhasana, half lotus, lotus. Just always find yourself there, just naturally. Don't think to yourself, how should I be seated? Find the seat that's comfortable. Then just allow your arms to open out, to embrace, bringing the palms together in front of your heart, your elbows raised. Namaste. Bow your head to yourself in salutation. I would suggest that each day, morning, evening, whenever possible, take a moment to just do this to yourself. And just feel the presence of that grace. We'll end with
So thank you all for joining us on this lovely Sunday morning. And Baba Muktananda's lunar samadhi will also be celebrated here on Tuesday, October 19th. And we'll have an evening kirtan from 5:30 to 7 o'clock p.m., followed by dinner prasad. So everybody's invited to join us for that. So that's this upcoming week. And then, as Gurudev mentioned, he'll be going to Virginia to Synchronicity October 23rd, 24th, and 25th, and that's in favor of Virginia. So if anybody has anybody along that coast who you would like to come and participate or have Gurudev's darshan, you can tell them to contact us and we'll give them the details of where that program is. Then on November 2nd and the 4th, we have Deepawali coming up, our Diwali celebrations. So on the 2nd and the 4th both, the programs will be from 5:30 p.m. until 7 o'clock p.m., also followed by prasad, and everybody's invited to join us for that. And then on November 15th through the 18th, we have the Satvik cooking class. So for those of you who have participated in that before, that'll be during those days. And you can register for that at the gift shop or in the office. And then on November 20th, we have the last intensive here with Gurudev for this year, 2021, and the topic of the intensive is balancing traditional and modern values. So with that, everybody's invited to come up for darshan, followed by lunch prasad, and today's lunch prasad is offered by Vijay and Poonam Shori. Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai.